All right, you guys, so we are currently in the outdoor studio. Super exciting. Now we're going to start working on the base or the column that brings the diorama up off the ground. And that's what makes this part or this variation of the Goliath Birdeater Tarantula spider so appealing. And I'm super excited the customer ordered it because I haven't made this variation yet. It's going to be really cool. So I hope to at least have maybe a foot off of the actual base. So that's how much actual rock formation we'll have. It's going to be pretty cool. But we want to make sure that we create something that can really last a long time. But not just have a lot of detail, but have strength in total. So what we're going to do is I've picked up a few wood dowels as well as some threaded rod. I've also picked up some washers and some nuts. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a pulled down overall base. And it's going to be compressed with the overall threads. It'll make sense as we get into it, but the whole point is that when we put this diorama base together, it's going to give us the strength that we need for it not to shift around too much because it's going to have a little bit of weight on top, right? We're also going to have this wood base at the bottom. We're going to dress this up so it looks very professional. Not only are we going to stain coat it and clear coat it, we're also going to go ahead and sink the threads and the nuts into the base. We're going to put an actual carpet on the bottom, and then we're going to put rubber soles on the bottom so that it doesn't, it has a nice grippy surface, but it has a little bit of fabric, so if it were to hit something, it looks really professional, and it protects itself as well as the table. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open these bad boys up, and I want to stain them. However, the process that we're going to go through is I want to drill the holes before we stain it so that even the holes that we drill have stain in them as well, and they're clear coated with protection. The underneath part, the holes will not be visible unless you choose to cut the carpet that we finish it with to access those screws. The ones on the very top will be visible. However, they're going to be kind of synced up so that when we put the clay base on top of it to put the spider on the very top, those will kind of also assist in keeping the actual clay structure on the top from possibly moving around as we get it stationary. So it'll make sense later on in the process. So the very first thing is we're going to go ahead and open this up. We're going to take some measurements and we're going to get some holes drilled into the base plate before we start to cut some foam to give us the raised portion. All right, you guys, so what we're going to do is I've got some scrap 2x4s here, and we're going to go ahead and take the plastic off. Actually, I might even leave the plastic on for this part. Why not? And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lift up the base slightly. Just like that. And what that's going to allow us to do is when I shoot through it with the drill, that I won't shoot through the other side, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to sit the base on right top of it. It doesn't have to be super perfectly even because it is an oval. But just remember that one of the oval sides will be the forward facing of the diorama. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my fingers, different lengths of my finger index here, and I'm going to go ahead and gauge how far apart I would like that to be. I think that just having it roughly in the middle is absolutely okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drill the holes. So we're going to drill a total of 3 holes for these. And these are going to go all the way through the entire structure. But we're going to go ahead and drill it into the actual wood platform first. So what we have here is we have an actual threaded rod, and I bought 2 of these, and we're hopefully going to cut them into 1 foot sections. So we have a 1/4 inch and this 24 inches long threaded rod, 20 threads per inch. So it is a fine thread. So I do have some stuff, the hardware for that attachment. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by drilling the 1/4 inch holes into it. And I also have some wood dowels as well. We're not going to get into the wood dowels until we get to the foam work, which will be here soon. I also have the Proxon saw out as well, so we're going to get to that in this portion of the video. So let's go ahead and get the drill out and let's drill some holes. You also notice that the drill bit is extremely long, and we're going to need that to get through the foam and everything later when we add the stability to the project. Now, one thing that I want to do, so we're going to make it into 3 different sections, 1, 2, 3, like kind of like a triangle, as it were. So each corner will have a hole. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that I leave enough room so that I could potentially put a surprise in there for the diorama. So on the so we'll make it like the top screw will be here, and then we'll have them coming down further apart, so we have a little bit of room in between. So we probably will only use 2 dowels to give it that strength that we're looking for, but it's going to be just enough strength. Think about your weight too, right? I remember I said at the very beginning of the product series that we wanted to keep it at least under 25 pounds. That way we can reduce the amount of shipping price that we have. If we can give them a quality item without killing ourselves on shipping to Germany, then let's do it, right? So let's go ahead and drill these holes, guys. Just like there's our first hole. It actually collected all the dust inside the plastic piece. What do you think, buddy? All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that threaded rod there and I'm gonna push that down into the hole there. Of course, it's gonna be pretty stout there. Okay, and that's gonna keep that from moving as I drill these other holes. So my goal here is I want to have it to where there's a space here. So I want to be able to put something in here. Potentially, we'll see, maybe. I don't know how the strength is going to be. And then we'll just kind of see where it takes us. I'm going to try to make sure that I drill those holes as straight as possible. That way it applies as much downward pressure from base plate, top plate to base plate. Let's go ahead and drill the other 2 holes here. I'm going to go down to a smaller drill bit since we don't need that much size there. So again, we're going to try to create that. All right, so there's number 2. And we're going to put another one over here in the back. Now I'm making sure that I don't overshoot the bottom base plate because it's a narrower gauge. Straight down as possible. Pull that threaded rod out there. Pull that threaded rod out there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, because this is the top plate and this is the part that's going to be facing upward, I need to go ahead and drill these out slightly larger. All right, so there's that. There's our 3 holes there. We're also going to mark off that this is number 1. And we'll mark that again when we take it off. So there's 1. This is supposed to be hole number 1. Now these holes need to be substantially larger because I want this to be a flush surface, right? So let's go ahead and get a paddle bit and let's go ahead and wallow this out a little bit so that those washers will sit down into here. And here are the washers that we have. All right, so this is the biggest bit that I have. And the sad thing is that it's going to really be gnarly. So I'm going to lean into it with my arm. Thing's brutal. Once you get started, it's not so bad.
That's too big.
And the goal is that these
That is too high.
Your son, stay right there. And the goal is that these little washers will fit down in those holes right there.
What?
Still not as deep as it needs to be. So I need to go a little bit deeper. Okay. And just like that, now it needs enough space for the little washer, the little thing to go on, so it needs to go a little bit deeper. A little bit deeper, right, buddy? Okay. A little bit deeper. So there we are, fitting it again. And then to know if it's deep enough, you just run something across it and it hits, so it's not deep enough. So we need to go a little bit deeper. And then there it is. That should be deep enough right there, because when it tightens down, it's going to tighten more into the hole. So we'll go ahead and get all 3 of those holes wallered out there. And then we'll take the plastic off, right, buddy? Okay. So we'll do that again on these 2 holes here. Remember, that's number 1. Cool.
You're doing good.
Am I? Thank you, buddy. Thank you, booger butt. All right. Whew. Okay, so now with that done, I need to go ahead and take the plastic off. So what we're gonna do. Here, you want to take the plastic off? Here, pull plastic. Pull the plastic off. All that dust come off there.
Oh, that's your
And then we'll go ahead and take the plastic off the second one as well. You guys, so here are our two pieces of wood, and we've already got them pre-drilled with the holes. Again, that is going to hold a 1/4 inch threaded rod all the way through all the foam layers. So before we stain this, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use some XPS foam, and we're going to build up our layers for us to sandwich between these two pieces of wood. We're going to use the larger piece here for the actual gauging of the size because it would encapsulate the bottom anyways. We're going to do some light carving with the Hotwire tools to carve the outside edges of the foam. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lay our foam out here. We're going to lay our base down here, and we're going to go ahead and the circle to be. I'm going to try to get two pieces out of this one piece of scrap foam that I have. And just because I kind of burn through it in a way doesn't mean that the little pieces that get left over are just trash. I could always glue them to another piece of foam to make something else. So there's one, and like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and go around it. If I have to cut it short in some areas, then that's completely okay because I expect to have to carve some of that away with the Hotwire or carving set. But we'll go ahead and go wide with it for now, and we'll carve away what we don't need, okay? So I'll go ahead and set that off to the side, and then I'll get the next piece, and then we're going to need probably quite a few pieces of this to build up what we need. Set that off to the side, and we'll get the Hotwire Proxon saw out in a few moments. So same thing again. Now, as I get down towards the bottom of the overall structure, I will be able to reduce the size down to that one. So I'll go ahead and cut that one out as well. Again, we're going really wide with it for now. Now, in total, I think that the sheet of XPS foam is actually running about $6 or $7, which isn't too bad at all, really. And then let's see if we can get another one out of this one. I don't think it's going to work out, so we'll probably have to go down to the next size down. Because you got to remember that I'm going to carve away the outsides of the foam XPS, and then there'll be clay on top of that. So we're going to take it down quite a bit. But I just want to be able to build up that base. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the Proxon saw pulled over. We'll do a zoomed out view version, and then I'll kind of zoom in and cut a lot of them out. And then we'll just see how high these stack. I may have to get another sheet of this. I do not know yet. As you can tell, the little hooligans in the background are jumping on the trampoline while I'm recording some content, and they are acting like some monkeys. Alright. I don't know if the actual sound will be able to pick up on this, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the Proxon saw on. Now, one thing with the Proxon saw is that it gets pretty hot and you can always pull more wire down. I have never had to pull more wire down. Another thing is, I only turn up the temperature just enough to where it actually cuts the foam. I don't cut up any higher because that way you don't get an excess burn. And by excess burn, I mean when you cut it, you want to try to keep it to where it's the diameter of the wire that you have on the actual Proxon saw itself. So if you have to turn it too high, too much power, then it burns it and it creates a wider gap. Especially if you take any kind of pauses when you're kind of re-gauging and moving things around. If you stop, it burns a hole in it. Not really, it really doesn't matter in this type of situation, but if you're doing something a little bit more fine-tuned where you have to get a perfectly straight edge, you don't really want that, like that burn away or chisel portion away from what you want a straight line to be, if that makes sense. So we're going to freehand this because it is a rock formation, and then we'll go ahead and get these layered up. go ahead and start off with a scrap piece here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on Proxon saw here. And we will turn this up a little bit. Okay, so it is cutting pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and grab a hold here. It doesn't have to be perfect exact. You know, again, we're going to be cutting a lot of ways. Off there, we'll continue on and around. I mean, you can literally do this with one hand, you know, so it's not really difficult to do it. Again, I'm only turning up the heat enough to where it cuts it in a nice, smooth manner. You could turn up the heat quite a bit and really burn through the foam if you wanted to. I don't think that we need to do all that in this situation. Now, if you're thinking that this is just going to be a stone structure, don't think that. There's going to be surprises along the way if I can make it happen here. And later on in the process, we will go through and we will be casting some more spider parts. That's pretty cool. And that was my original sculpture out of monster clay. And then we use Smooth On Molestar 35 to make the body, and then Smooth Molestar 15 to make the legs. Turn it off for just a minute here. And there's our first two pieces there. Alright, let me go ahead and reposition the camera so we can get a different angle here. Alrighty, so this time I'm really going to turn up the heat, you guys. So I'm going to turn up the temperature on the blade a little bit. Now, one thing that you'll notice when you're cutting foam is you don't want the wire cutter just to sit unattended for too long with the wire, because it causes the wire to heat up too much. When you're running it through foam, the foam cools it off. See, I got it running red hot right now. The wire is actually turning red, which means that, to me, that means I'm running it a little bit too hot. But that's why you have extra wire. You can always pull a new piece of wire down as it deteriorates and gets burned up. It just depends on how hot you want to run your Proxon saw. And I'm not the absolute master of a Proxon saw, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of like little fine-tuned things that I could probably do better on. So I'm not going to act like I can't improve, because I can. I'm hitting so right now I'm hitting the sticker on the back of the foam, and it will burn through it. It just takes a little bit extra pressure, and it leaves a waxy texture onto the blade. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. We need to tighten my wire. The stickers on the back of the foam is pretty brutal. I'm gonna turn it back down to a 3. Uh-oh, broke a wire. Alright, so I'm going to save all of the foam that I did not use today, because you never know when you may need some foam, right? So let's go ahead and put the Proxon saw off to the side here. We might need it again later, we'll see. Alright, so here's our main base unit there, and there's our watered out holes for the washers for later. Alright, here's our base, and we got 2 small ones. There's one right there, and then there's another one. Then we have a total of 3 larger pieces, actually 4. And let's just put these in a random assorted order. Obviously, they're really large. So we'll just kind of layer them in like that. Okay, and there's one more here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to put the largest on top. What do you think? I don't know. Let's just see how it looks. And here's the top plate here, and then it's going to sit like that. Now, obviously, we're going to take a lot of this away, right? So it's going to have a really rocky formation. And the goal is that it's going to be inset a little bit further into grade than this portion here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill the holes from here all the way down into the bottom base. And that's going to give us the structure all the way through. So what I'm going to do now, I want to drill the holes through all the way to the base. And then after we have those holes drilled, we can go ahead and carve this down, and I'll take it apart and stain the boards and clear coat them so that we can actually start with the rock formation. Remember that this foam is going to be cut back quite a bit because we're going to have clay on top of this that will give us the rock formation for the diorama. And there's also going to be a surprise along the way carved into the side of the actual foam base itself. So we'll see how that goes overall. So we're going to go down through one at a time. All right, so we're going to remove that. There's layer 1. Now the piece that we took off this is port hole 3. So I need to mark that. 3. Then we're going to flip it over like that. 3. 3. And then flip it over. We didn't make it through that one, okay? So there's that one. So what we'll do, but we did get into that one barely. So what we'll do is we'll mark it right there. I'm going to shoot through this one. And I'm going to line up that hole right there. And I'm going to push it down. There was a problem though, because I didn't line up perfectly with that one. But we know that those holes match that hole. So I need to make sure that the next holes will match here. So what we need to do is I actually need to flip it over. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to circle these holes. These were our original holes, right? So we're not going to use those. But what we're going to do is we're going to get those 2x4s. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the 2x4 spacers down. And I'm going to flip these over. And I'm going to center them the best I can. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes all over again. And then when I flip it over, we have new holes. So there's our hole, there's our hole, there's our hole. No. This one's our hole. So now, what we'll do is we'll have those that shoot all the way through on all layers. Okay? So this was number 3. This was number 3. I don't know why I drove through on all of those, but this is... And then here's number 3. Okay? Don't worry about those. All right, so now at this point I can give it a light sanding. And then we can go ahead and be ready for the next layer. Okay, so I kind of made a mess, you guys, but it's part of the process. And I have all of the layers drilled through and ready to glue. So the foam is ready to go. So we're going to set this off to the side for just a little while. It's going to stay in that overall formation, because that way when I come back and I'm ready to add them to this panel one at a time down the threads, they'll fit perfectly. So they're going to be flipped, as it were, like this, and they'll be on there. And then number 3, which is that bottom one, would go in like that. Okay? So for now, we're going to go ahead and remove this. Flip this over, not that piece, not the base piece. Then we're going to set that up to the side. So now we have the actual wood drilled, with pre-drilled with its holes. We have the foam drilled as well. Now we're not done with the foam yet. We are going to put some wooden dowels. These are 3/8 wooden dowels into there. So we're going to use at least 3 of these to give the foam structure an additional layer of support. And we will use wood glue to inset these in so it'll give it extra strength. They're really lightweight, they're not metal, but they're going to do the job to keep those from shifting around and separating throughout the overall creation process. Now, before these are set up, we will be tightening the threaded screws down all the way through the whole structure, and it will create a really strong bond. Okay, so these need to be a little bit slightly shorter than the overall thread length that we use here between the 2 pieces of wood. You understand? So we'll probably cut these as well as the threads itself. So we're not to the threads yet, but we're going to go ahead and stain these beautiful pieces of wood. So let's go ahead and get some stain out. Now, as far as stain colors, I had some options. I have a few in stock right now. I have special walnut, which is kind of like a paled out, kind of like an ashen color tan wood. Here's a side clip of it. And I also have a dark walnut. And then I also have an American walnut. I think I'm going to go with American walnut just because it's a little bit more rich in color. And it will really accentuate the bark texture, which is really what's going to be visible from the sides of the wood pieces of board. So let's go ahead and get some stain on these pieces of wood. So I'll catch you guys, whether it's this afternoon or tomorrow, when we're staining these. We'll probably stain them one side and then the other separate days. So this is probably like a 2 or 3 day process. Just because I'm not going to rush through it, and I really want that stain to really sit onto the wood overnight, just really to richen, especially the outside thicker portions of the bark. So we'll see you tomorrow. Alright, so this is very self-explanatory. I'm just going to take just a little rag here, and I'm just going to dip it in my stain. And we're just going to go ahead and give it a nice, good stain. I'm really going to focus on those outside edges. I don't really care about the middle part, just because it's all going to be so covered up with the foam. I just don't want to. I want to make sure that none of that seeps through. I'm just gonna go ahead and just literally put it on pretty thickly. See, flip it over there. Same thing here. We're gonna go all the way around the outside edge. We're gonna have carpet all through here, so it won't really matter. And then we're gonna also put those rubber soles on the bottom of it, so it'll be good. Just gonna get some in those holes right there. And then we'll just let that set up. While I have it out, I might as well just go ahead and get this inside part here. Let that one set up just like that. I'm just gonna dab this in, just like this. And there's so many different ways to apply stain. I'm mainly getting stain around that outside edge, just in case any of that's visible. From the corner of the rock formation that we're going to put in. Alright, you guys, so we are on the next stage of creating the spider diorama 2.0. Now, I do have a few supplies here. Some of them were for this project, some of them not. One of the products that we're going to be using here in the outside workshop to put this all together is going to be Gorilla Original Glue. Now, the reason we use this is because when you spray it down with water, the foam it is, you can go ahead and use this to attach the foam pieces together. And because you spray down water, it keeps the foam from melting. And it kind of alleviates that melting process to where it doesn't really get a good bond. This is really great glue for foam builders, and we'll be using this a lot in the near future as we create more foam products. So look forward to that. I'm going to start creating a lot of foam props and Halloween decor and all sorts of different things here in the studio. We'll also cast some of those out of concrete too. Now that's a different video. We'll get into in the future. So I'll set this off to the side for now. Now, as you can see in the previous clips, we've already went ahead and we've stained the wood panels themselves We've already got them pre-drilled with holes, and we've already got them countersunk on the bottom so that we have the holes ready to be attached with the rods. So the next stage of the process will be to go ahead and cut our lengths of rod to size. So again, these rods that we are using are going to be 1/4 inch, 24 inches long. Now, I don't intend to go over a foot in height. It's going to give us a nice projection. It's going to be kind of fun and abstract and bring it up off the actual table that the diorama is sitting on. So we don't need to go above and beyond. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab my hacksaw, and we're going to go ahead and cut these to 1 foot sections. Go ahead and attach that bit there. Oh, I have it backwards. Look at me. All right, now that is a metal cutting bit, so I do have one of those. All righty, let me go ahead and get some power here. Now that's another reason you always measure before you cut anything, and I don't need it to be a 12-foot segment. So the overall diorama lift is actually 8.5 inches. We're going to get a little bit of compression there, but I don't care if the bolts stick out here because it gives us something for that upper clay portion to attach to. So we'll go ahead and make this, let's just round it up to 9 inches threads. And then, like I said, we countersunk those so we have ample space. I'm going to set that whole project stack off to the side here. We'll leave that paper down there, that project board. That's what I use to keep the stain from destroying this piece of plywood that I really haven't used. So I have a marker here. We're going to go ahead and mark off 9-foot segments. 9-foot segments. 9-inch segments. And we need a total of 3 of these, right? Because we have the triangle, right? The triangle. So we have 3. Okay. Let's cut 2, and I'll measure the last one off that last segment there. So to do this, I'm just going to apply gentle pressure to this, and we'll go ahead and cut these out here. 9 inches. There's the first one here. And I mean, you could put this in a vise if you wanted to, like with something wrapped around to keep it firm. But I mean, just a firm handshake, handle on it, firm handshake, and then just keep control over your hacksaw or oscillating saw as you cut into that. Once it gets started, it's like butter. There's number 2 to length. We'll measure and measure off this last one here. Come on in here. Come on in here. Let's go ahead and measure this next one off here. Get that marker there. Always have your stuff nearby. You never know when you're going to need to mark something off, right? All right, measuring tape put away there. I'm going to hold on to that real firm right there. And just like that, we got that cut. We'll put the hacksaw away here. Alrighty, so we got our pieces cut here. Now, these are all 3 at 9 inches. Threw me off for a second there. The threads got caught and it was like sticking up there. I was like, no, I cut the wrong length. All 9 inches. If there's some variation between the 3, it does not matter as long as it's going through all of the pieces of foam as well as the boards. So the very first thing is we're going to go ahead and get our very first board here. And we're going to go ahead and shove these into here and go ahead and get the washer set. And then we'll start to stack the foam on top of this. Now there's some notations here. So I'm going to cut the foam down into a rock-like shape. And we're going to take that foam shape and shape it down even more so that we have room to attach all of the air dry clay on top of the actual foam build that we create. So we would need a shell-like kind of feature. So the air dry clay that we apply to it will be the shell of the outside of the foam. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we shape it down a lot. Now the actual hot wire cutter probably will not hurt the actual board itself. So I'm really not too worried about that. Now I could put 1,000 layers of clear coat on this, but if if the wire hits it, it probably isn't going to hurt it in any way. I'm not really stressing it out too much. Now, if it was something that was like really, really expensive, instead of like a $12 or $13, $14 piece of wood here, I'd probably put like a piece of aluminum foil down or saran wrap or some kind of like metal plate. I would shape everything and then I would go ahead and attach them together. Now, we're not going to use the glue on the foam pieces until... Now, we're not going to use the glue on the foam pieces until we're ready to assemble everything and sandwich it together. So, if you remember earlier in the video, I was labeling everything, the holes 1, 2, 3. I lost count of that along the way because I've stacked them over here somewhere. So, we'll do a kind of like a test fit of everything together before we glue it. All right, so let's go ahead and get these put in through the holes here. I guess it wouldn't be hard if it wasn't challenging at times, right? All right, so there's the first rod through, as you can see there. And then we'll go ahead and put the other ones in there as well. We're pushing it through the top portion. That way I don't have to shove all of the threads through the entire length of it to get to the other side. So we're going to push it in from above. And then there's the second one. And then we'll rotate it there. And then we'll put the last one in here. So there's our last one. So we'll go ahead and kind of level those off there. All right. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and put our washers on. So again, we are using, if I recall correctly, it was 1 1/4 inch washers with 1/4 inch holes. All right. So we're going to go ahead and lay those on there like that. 1, 2, and there's number 3. And the bolts that we're using for these are just self-locking bolts. It's got the little like plastic washer on the inside, and it'll stay locked into position. So let me go ahead and get each one of them started by hand. There's 2. You got to be kind of forceful with it in some ways because that first thread could be like kind of weird because I did not grind the tips off as I cut them with a hacksaw, so those could be kind of raw. If I need to, I will go ahead and grind those down. I don't need to in this situation. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and sink these on just enough to where they're on the threads, and then we will go ahead and move on to the next stage. Again, so obviously I use the hacksaw to cut each one of those threads flush. You got to put a little bit of elbow grease to get those nuts started onto the actual threads, just because I didn't grind those smooth. If it continued to give me issues getting those on the threads, I would grind them smooth, exposing a clean thread, and then I would go ahead and put these nuts on here. But because I was able to hand thread them all, we're going to go ahead and use a ratchet kit to go ahead and just tighten those down. So it's nothing super special. I'm just going to grab a ratchet set real quick. Alright, so I've got them snugged on the bottom of each thread. Okay, so when we get ready to tension them down, we'll leave that ratchet out, so we'll keep that. Put the rest of these off to the side here. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over now, and we'll sink it all the way down to the bottom of each individual washer. So there's our 3 holes, as I spoke of earlier. Make sure that those little washers get pushed in there. Now, if those washers bend a little bit as they go into those pocketed holes, then it's no big deal. And then there we are, ready to rock and roll. It bugs me when they don't sit flush, right? So I want to make sure that those I want to try to make sure that those washers sit flush inside those holes. It's something small, but there we go. There we go. Now we're talking. Now, because the pocket holes that I had, countersunk holes that I had drilled are tight against the 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch washers, it's going to give a really nice fit. And those washers are in there permanently. So when we tighten this down, it's going to pull the threads together and up into the unit. Alright, so The next step of the process is to go ahead and figure out which order we need to layer the foam into. Now, this is a little bit of a process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab all my pieces here. Now, we want to go from thin to thick, right? Thin to thick. Now, this time what we're going to do is we're actually going to physically label each individual one. Starting with the smallest one, we're going to go ahead and figure out which order we want to lay that in. Now, remember that the triangle is not perfectly level because remember I want to add a little surprise into the diorama. There's piece number 1. This should be piece number 2. Piece number 2. Is that piece number 2? I said 2 before, didn't I? Number 1, 2, 3. All right, this will be piece number, technically 3 of the foam. Number 3 of the foam. Next layer. Alright guys, so there's our piece right there. Already fully stacked. Alright guys, so there's our stack. Now, some of those holes didn't line up with the threads. And the reason for which is because I drilled those bottom holes with something other than an actual like drill press where it would went straight down completely through the actual wood panel. I drilled them by hand, and we are not perfect people. We're not perfect human beings, and we're not machines. So when I drilled those holes, they drilled at a slight angle, which means that when I put those threads in there, they're angled differently. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that I had to pop a few of those holes through the foam just a little bit thicker than usual. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this with the Hotwire set. Now, remember, when you are using a Hotwire cutter, whether it's the Proxon saw, which we used earlier in the video, or you're using like a Cool Top 3-in-1 foam cutter, remember to ventilate your area. Don't do this in the house with children around you. Make sure, like I'm in the outdoor workshop shed, the door's open, I'm going to turn on a fan. So we're going to do this in time lapse because I'm still going to wear a mask. It's not going to be a respirator because I'm going to have a fan blowing this directly out the door, but I'm still going to wear like a dust mask to try to keep some of that out of my face. And we're just going to do this real quick. I'm going to really just lay into this, and I'm going to really sculpt this down with the foam carving kit. Now, remember I said I wanted to include a surprise in the diorama, right? So we're going to go ahead and use the first portion of this will be actually just using the arc wire cutter, which is this one right here. Now you can find this tool kit, this foam carving kit in my Amazon affiliate list below. So if you want to see some of the items that I use in my crafting, you can definitely go down there and check out some of the products that I use. You ain't got to buy nothing, you ain't got to do none of that stuff. I'm just saying that if you want to see what I use in the studio a lot on a personal basis, it's down there. All right, so it has an actual AC adapter here. I'm going to go ahead and plug this into power, and I'm going to be moving around a little bit, so I'll try to move you along with me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this arc cutter to really just shape the overall outside of the diorama. So the kicker is I'm going to focus on the bottom, and I'm going to work my way up. So what we'll do is as I get to the top, I'll put the wood board on the top, and then at that point, I'll flip it over and start working on the top part into the bottom of this board. That way I get a perfect taper at both ends, and I don't have to really lean over a whole lot to kind of get up under the foam with the upper board. All right. Once that is done, we will go ahead and shift to a different type of tool. This is a curved tool. It does not have an arc, which means it doesn't have that continuous current going through it. However, this gets a lot hotter in its own way, and this really does melt and cut through the foam. What we're going to do is we're going to cut a small hole into the side of the foam here, and I'm hoping just to include some fun surprises in there. We'll see how that goes. We're going to try to do that. I really want to do that for the customer, especially since they're ordering from so far away, and it won't really add much weight to the overall item when we're shipping it, right? So that was one of the goal. Number 2 was to keep the weight kind of down, but number 1 is to create an awesome product. So we're going to try to do that. So we got those 2 pieces out here, and then what we'll do is we'll use this cool top foam carving kit to go ahead and carve out the foam. Let's get some power going. Now, the reason I like this cool top one is because it actually has a on and off switch, which means I can go ahead and cut it off when I'm not near it and really let the thing cool down quite a bit. All right, guys, as you can see, I do have a mask on. It's just a dust mask, but we're going to go ahead and use this just to kind of keep some of the stuff out of my face as I work through it. And I also have a glove in case I want to grab any pieces and just really like pull them away. If you do that with your hands, sometimes you can get burned pieces on your hand if you pull them away too soon. Or if I get a piece that I want to just like pull off of the actual hot wire cutter, then I can do so. Because sometimes if you stay on one piece too long, it can get stuck onto the actual wire arc cool top cutter here. Just remember that this piece is completely removable, so I'll switch to the other piece as I get to that stage. But what we're going to go do is I've already got this plugged in. I've also got the fan plugged in here, so we're going to turn this on. And we're going to turn this on to max without rotation. We don't want it to rotate the air around the room. All right, so it's pushing it directly out of the door. And then I'll let this go for an additional 5 minutes when I get completely done, just to really get it aired out of here, okay? So let's go ahead and get this thing turned on here. And it has an on and off switch, which is absolutely awesome. And it has a little LED right there. Let's go ahead and zoom you in. You don't want to look at me. You want to look at this. Alright guys, so it's still airing out in here, and I'm going to let it stay like that for a few moments just to get all that stinky smell out of here. Again, I wouldn't want to work with that with nothing on my face, but because it is an open area, I got the windows open, I've got the door open. All that air is just being pushed out. So it'll be a few more moments before all that is out of here. So when I take off the mask, I do smell it. But other than that, I'm going to leave the mask on just for a few minutes because when I do have the mask on, I'm pretty sure I'm breathing a little bit of it, but not so much. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this bad boy here. Now, I'm going to be very gentle with the top board because it was pretty tough to get on those threads. And I don't want to crack my board because I've already got it stained and clear coated. Woo! Number one, I'm going to lay it right here because we're going to layer them in and build them now. So there's number one. Remember I drew a line down it? Number one, top. Now one thing I'm going to do real quick, since I still got the Hotwire cutter out here, I'm going to plug it in, turn it on, and I'm going to quickly just score the outside edge of this top part. That way I can get a good seal underneath the board with the air dry clay. Alright, that's off now. Done. Alright, so I've got that layered. I'm going to go ahead and gently pull that off. It shouldn't be very hard to pull these off, one at a time. Again, one, top. One, top. One, top. Say it with me. One, top. One, top. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pull this one off. But are we? No, we're not. We're going to take it all the way to the top, and we're going to leave this exposed on the very bottom, okay? There's no point in taking that off because we're going to put Gorilla Glue on here and go ahead and push it down. Now, I need to see if I have some more nuts for these because I didn't buy enough. Alright guys, so I don't have water out here in the shed, but I do have some water bottles. So let me go ahead and pour these in here. I think one will do. There's no point in pouring more water in there if I don't need it. Well, why not? I can't lose the glove though. Don't need that anymore. And I think I'll be able to lose the mask as well. It's probably aired out. I needed a water bottle out here anyway, so it kind of works out. Throw these bottles away here. In recycling, right? In recycling. Alright, so it's all aired out in here. I can take off that mask. Do you have lines on my face? Probably. Alright, so we're going to get this here. And I'm going to go ahead and test the spray. Nice little fan there. Alright, now guys, so Gorilla Glue, okay? So instructions. Alright, easy steps. Lightly dampen one surface with water. Do not add water to bottle. Spread a thin layer of Gorilla Glue on other surface. Clamp projects down for 1 to 2 hours. You can use a heavy object as well. Okay, so I don't have any nuts to go on top of this. Alright, so I do have some nuts. Okay, so alright, so they're not self-locking nuts, you know, with the washer inside. So I will use 2 of those and I'll do a tight binding between the 2 to keep it down. I really don't need to do that, but I'm going to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a few things. First, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get these nuts out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So there's that. Put that off to the side. All right, so that's off to the side. Now we need to go ahead and open this container, and it does have a little cap that you can lock it down on. That's a good thing. Let me go ahead and open this up. Okay, there's that. Always make sure you put the cap back on it. Okay. All right, and I got my water. So we put some gloves on here. And again, my fan is still going, so it's pulling that air out and pushing it out. Okay, you probably hear in the background. I do apologize for that. But, yeah. Okay. So I've got some gloves on here. Cool. All right, so we're going to spray the water on the item that you're not going to glue. Well, I said I'm not going to take it off, but I'm going to anyways. All right, so we're going to apply the water to this, and then on the first layer, and we're going to apply the glue to the bottom here. Okay? So what we're going to do, I need 2 ratchets so I can bind them together right when I'm ready to, right? And we're going to tighten them like lug nuts. You do every back and forth until they're all tightened down. All right, both are set to lock. Okay. Okay, there's those. I need the washers. I need three washers. Those are all ready to go. And I have them isolated off. So there's that one, and that one. Got them all ready to go. Okay, guys, so our station is ready. I've got the hardware ready. I've got my ratchets ready to tighten it all down. I've got all of them layered and ready to go. And all I got to do is take them and start stacking them. So we're going to get our Gorilla Glue out here. We're going to go ahead and spray the item here. Okay. Okay. All right. So I need to label that 1. Remember, top 1. Say it with me. Top 1. Okay. All right. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to apply my glue. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it in just a circular pattern here. I want to make sure that I get the outside edge immediately. I don't want that outside edge to be pulling apart in any way. Okay, so there's that. So I'm going to immediately flip it over. We're going to slide that down. Glue. Slide it all the way down and push down. Okay. All right, so there's number 1, right? Number 1. Okay. Number 2. And this time I'm going to apply the glue to the bottom one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and spray this with water. Now what I'm going to do with this one now, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use my glove. I'm going to smooth all this out. Because I'm not really moving the pieces apart, like, back and forth to get a really good bond and spreading it with the items themselves as I push them together. Top 1. Again, we numbered them, remember? All right. Apply a little bit of that at each thread, maybe. There's no harm in putting a little bit at each thread. I never intend for these to come apart. Making sure you get that outside lip there. That way I don't get any separation on those outside edges. Okay. So then, of course, we've already sprayed our thingy here. Okay. Top number 1. Push that down. All right, there's that one there. Next. Nice little misting there. Nice little misting. Okay. Another layer. I feel like I mismeasured one of them. Can't tell. Maybe. I guess I put one on wrong at the bottom. I don't know. I took it off the exact same way. Nice. Okay, flipping that over. Number 1. Pushing down. Next on the list. Hopefully it's not getting in too dark out here, guys. I'm losing the light a little bit out here. I currently don't have power out here yet. Okay, there's that. Spread all that goodness out here. Trust me when I say we're going to get a really good bond with these items. Top. Pushing down. We're almost to the finish line on the stacking, you guys. Alright, I'm going to spread that good old water out. H2O, right? I should have done that. Alright, there's that. Spread it out with my finger. Almost forgot that, you know. That's a good step to have. Now, I don't want it gushing out of the sides, but remember, we're going to go over this with clay anyways. So we're just building the structure, right? And remember, the goal number 2 of this project was to keep it as light as possible. But number 1, creating an awesome piece of art for this customer. Right? So we want to make sure that we're holding to our word. Again, this is going to survive the shipping to Germany. So tomorrow in the studio, we're actually going to be making the actual legs and the body from my casted molds. All right, guys, so that's the very top of the foam base. We have it right there. That's all of the layers together. We've already got the glue on the items itself. The last one is the very top, and we're going to go ahead and glue it as well. And then we're going to go ahead and attach them together. Now, here's the kicker. We're going to go ahead and apply a little bit extra string to it. So I do have these wood dowels. So I'm going to remove my glove for a few minutes. And I do have this wood dowel here. So we're going to go ahead and rip this open here. Now, I purchased these at Hobby Lobby. You can also, again, find these in my my crafting list below. If you want to visit that, you can check that out. I have everything on there from these wood dowels to paintbrushes, all the stuff that I use, the good stuff. In the studio. Now we need to cut these to length just like we did the previous ones, but we don't want them to be too long. So we're going to go ahead and take our measurements here. We want these to be about, let's just say 5.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and measure these off here. Let's go with 5.5 here. Super exact, right? I'm going to go ahead and be super exact with this. We're going to go ahead and measure the other one. Perhaps I should have marked these beforehand, maybe? I don't know. Alright, there's 5.5. I think I'll be able to get a second cut out of that one. Alright, I still got my hacksaw plugged in, don't judge me. We're going to go ahead and cut these real quick the same way as we did before. Alright, so I've got 3 of these wood dowels. And what they're going to do is they're going to go down through the actual foam itself to give it additional support. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drill some holes really quickly. Alright, so I got my drill now. And I have a big old 5/16 drill bit. I'm going to drill these holes real quick. Now, remember there's going to be a surprise later. And that's supposed to be on... I did get that one, the bottom one wrong. It's going to be on this side. So there's the hole right there, first hole. This is the first one. Second one. Third one. And we're leaving that one side open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use actual wood glue this time. You know what? Why not? I'm going to push that all the way in. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to take that and we're going to push it in. Just like that. It's good to give those a few seconds to let that set, like, you know, sit all the glue to settle down in the hole. We're going to go ahead and use just a bit. Push that all the way down. Push it all the way down. Now lift about maybe 3 or 4 centimeters at the top to where I can go ahead and let that set in. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and spray the last board here. Spray that last board here. Kind of move that around. Get that nice and wet. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take this. We're going to go around the outside of the top plate. Try filling some of those holes right there. I know I'm using a lot of glue, but you know, it's going to really create a really strong bond. Alright, so there's that. It is take quite a bit of glue, a lot more than I thought. But that's okay, you guys. As long as it creates a sound product, I am happy spending an extra $4 or $5 on some glue. I haven't used Gorilla Glue in quite a long time. Gorilla Glue, let me know, man. If y'all have, I mean, they have pretty much all sorts of glue. Let me know. I'd love to get a sponsor from you guys and just use your stuff in all my projects. That would be legit. So you just let me know when you want that to happen. Go ahead and smooth all that water droplets out there. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip it over here. And then we have our one right there. We have it labeled on the foam as well. That one. And sorry, don't get glue on my hat. It'd be horrible. There's that one. And the last one here is a little bit further in. All right, I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure here. Take my glove off. All right, so I got full contact all the way down. Now, we're going to go ahead and put our washers on immediately. All right, so there's our washers. And then we're going to go ahead and put our little nuts on there. Again, those are the ones without the little insert. So those are just regular plain old Jane nuts. And before I forget, I'm also going to wipe off the container of my Gorilla Glue container. And I'm going to cap it so that I don't forget. Well, that last one's wanting to be a little bit of a difficult thing to get on there. Sometimes you just got to give it a little bit of extra there to get it on there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just hand tighten these down just a little bit. I'm going to switch to the other ratchets, get a little longer of a shaft. I'm going to go ahead and get those to our hand tight. Now remember, we have those wood dowels in there, so it will only let us tighten it but so far. So if we ever felt like we were over tightening it and smushing or crushing the foam, it wouldn't let us do that because the wood dowels would keep that from happening. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to, so I've got these tightened down just a little bit. They're sitting about maybe 2 centimeters, maybe a centimeter and a half above the top of the board. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're flipping on its side here. We don't have any glue anywhere, so we don't have to worry about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to wipe this off. I'm not going to waste all that glue. All right, so we wipe that off, throw those gloves off to the side. I'm going to cap that now. So there's that. We ended up didn't use wood glue. I was intending to use wood glue. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use our double ratchet here in a double ratchet combo. I'm going to hold it up here. Actually, I'm going to start working at the bottom first because I want to make sure that that bottom piece sinks in. So I'm happy with how the top looks, but I want that bottom piece to sink in more. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put additional washer on right here. There we go. So I've got those two washers bound against each other, and it'll keep that rod from moving. So what we're going to do is I'll just hold both of those right there with the deep socket right there. And now I can go ahead and tighten these down. Now I'm just going to tighten it down to where those threads are coming out of the bottom of that bottom nut. Almost there. Very good. Last one here. Very good. So I got all of the threaded rods coming out of the washers at the bottom. So then there they are. So now what we have is we have all three rods going all the way through the unit, right? See that right there? Now, tomorrow I will be able to go ahead and, after this is fully dry, carve out the side piece right there that will have the surprise in it for the customer. So that should be this side here, which is gonna, let's put a circle here. So we're gonna put a circle right here. There's gonna be a surprise right here, just so you know a little bit. Hopefully, if things work out the way I want them to. If not, then there'll just be a hole in the side of the diorama. Now, it's got a good strong bond. It's sandwiching all of those pieces of foam together. And then before we take it inside to start putting clay on the side of this thing, what I will probably do is I'll probably go ahead and do a weigh-in. We'll see how much the overall diorama weighs to this point in time, and then we'll just go from there. So as of right now, there it is. There's the diorama build, and then we can start building it up from there. If I want to carve away a little bit more before we take it inside, I can do that when I'm working on the portion for the spider. So I'll tag that content at the very end. So we'll go ahead and finish this video up tomorrow when I am able to carve out the hole in the middle of the actual foam base. And then this segment of the video will end. So I know that we've kind of just built out this overall base here, but it's turned out absolutely great so far, but we got a long ways to go. Alrighty guys, so it's the next day for this Goliath Birdeater project, and we've already given the project a full 12 to 14 hours to cure up. So I'm going to go ahead and lay just some board down here, and when I say about board, I mean just some cardboard here. And it's just going to give us a soft surface for the actual diorama to lay down on, instead of just the plywood the top here that we have down on this segment of the bench, which is not actually completed yet. So I still have to build this later on down the road. We got to finish that portion first. So here's where we are so far. So we have the actual base created, and we of course use the 3 screws or bolts to really lag them together, right? It tightens it all down, and it tightens it so much that it causes the glue, the Gorilla Glue, to squeeze out of the sides of the project. Now that is a hard glue surface. Now, so if I would recommend, if you have any foam cutting to do before you do glue, I recommend you do that, because when you cut through this glue, it's really hard on the wire of your hot wire cutters. So unless you want to go out of your way to continuously replace the wire of the arc cutter or something like that, then I recommend you just carve it first, get it to the best shape you can, and then remove it. Now, as I stated in the voiceover earlier while I was cutting this here, I also went out of my way to kind of think about how the item's going to be shaped. Now, we're going to apply maybe 1 inch to 1/2 inch shell to the outside of the actual foam surface. As I mentioned earlier in the voiceover, I'm also going to drill a few holes inside the actual surface to the other side with our long drill bit, and we're going to run some actual armature thin gauge wire through the item, and we'll wrap that around the clay surface as we're attaching that, and that would be attached before we apply the actual rock textures with our different techniques inside the studio, the indoor studio, right? So what we're doing now is we're going to go ahead and carve out the hole on the side of the item, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shoot those holes through the outside edges all the way to the other side, and then at that point we will be ready to start working inside the studio with the air dry clay. Now, inside the studio, which will be a separate video, I've already purchased 10 pounds of air dry clay. I won't need that much, but it's good to have it because I'll be able to reuse that in certain projects coming up in the near future. So I've already got this down. It's going to keep us from just applying too much pressure to this outside board here. We're going to sit that right there, and let me go ahead and get the wire cutter out here. Instead of the arc cutter, we're going to be using this kind of like this little hook tool here. This thing gets really hot. It really does cake into the foam quite a bit. So this sometimes has to be cleaned, depending on what I'm cutting or how hot it's getting, what I'm cutting, and the consistency of the foam and the glue and things. very successful at it. So that's this portion of the diorama, guys. As you can see in this video, as a recap, we went ahead and we had the two bottom board and the top board. We went ahead and drilled our holes so the bottoms are pocketed. So it kind of gives us a nice clean profile on the bottom. We were ready for the carpet as well as the little rubber feet when we get to that stage inside the studio. Then we went ahead and brought those threaded rods through all of the foam layers that we had cut with the Proxon saw right there in the back. And then we went ahead and used a long drill bit to drill through all of both base plates and then through all of the cut layers of foam. We cut them in general shapes to the base of the board. So we tapered them from kind of small to large at the top. And then, of course, we cut those on the Proxon saw originally to get the kind of overall medallion shapes. Once we had those shapes kind of locked in, we brought the threaded rods all the way through. We used some just basic washers and nuts and hardware, and I did create a bind with the nuts on top so that way the rod did not spin as we tightened the bottom ones, which are locking nuts. So those are all bound together. Now we did that also to create a really strong pillar-like profile. Now I could continue this project up as high as I want. So if I wanted to double the size of this, which I may offer that as a 2-foot option, if I wanted to double the size of this, then I could possibly offer that and do that easily with the process we did. As we tighten those bolts, we had already layered these all with Gorilla Glue and the spray water, as you saw in earlier in the video. And then this created a pancake effect. We're a really tightening, compressed version of that. And it caused the glue to seep out of the edges. It also causes that glue to distribute underneath the foam itself and create a really strong bond so that there's no separation. So in essence, we have a really strong base here to build up the clay foundation on top of. We also went ahead and we used the Hotwire cutting kit, and it is in my Amazon affiliate list below. If you want to check that out, you can go in there and find that. Again, if I don't use the products in the studio, they're not in my list, let's be honest. Otherwise, we also used for a variety of ways to carve a hole into the side of the diorama. One of those being the actual carving set with the hooked wire attachment, which is, it really does melt the foam apart from like just cutting it with the arc. We also use the grinder wheel with the wire tool, which is actually really brutal. And if you have a smaller version of that on a Dremel tool, I would also recommend that for small detail work. Then we also showed you how you can use 2 times Rust-Oleum to use as a melting medium. And we also did that as well. And I showed you the little texture of that on my finger. Again, that can be found under the tips and tricks playlist. If you'd like to rewatch just that one portion of this content video, I will separate that out. 2 or 3 days to create this base only because of dry time of the stains as well as the clear coat Rust-Oleum that we used. And then we also waited a full 12 to 13 hours for the Gorilla Glue to set up before we could start foaming and carving into the side of the foam. Again, this is the very first video of this little project series. And again, you can also find the original Goliath Birdeater project series here on my YouTube channel also. But then again, this is a 2.0 lifted version of that, which is an abstract version of that project. It's going to be super cool, guys. Up next in this Goliath Birdeater Tarantula diorama series, where we are lifting the actual item up off the base in an abstract way, we're going to be using the original silicone molds, Moldstar 30, as well as Moldstar 15 for these 2 items. These are the main spider body and abdomen, as well as all of the legs and fangs here in this case. And then we also have the little tree frog for the water effect, which the customer specifically requested that we make sure that we include in this project. It's an excuse for me to get some more epoxy work out and create an awesome little water effect. So why wouldn't we do that? And to cast those, we're going to be using, this is Smooth Cast 230. Now, last time I used Smooth Cast 300 in bright white. This is actually an off-white, which I have not used before, so it kind of tones the overall diorama a little bit. Really doesn't matter so much because we're going to be layering it in different layers of paint to create really good wash effects. But we're going to be using this. It's the first time that I've used Smooth Cast 320 here in the studio. Again, 300 is what we've used in the past. Now, this is a fast set smooth cast, so we will have to work fast and lickety-split to get this done before it sets up. But of course, this is something that technically we have done in the past. but it's still very fun to kind of show you the working process of cast molding here in the studio. So if you're looking into making molds or casting or anything like that, you can definitely go back in the last diorama series for the Goliath Birdeater, and I showed you how I used those mold stars to create these molds in just this cup here, as well as this more advanced mold here of all of the legs. And as you can see, they're all layered in here. And as you can see, it is a doozy of a mold. This thing is massive. I can't remember the weight off the top of my head, but I did weigh it in that video, so you can go back and check that out. And I also have like a little storage space for tools and things like here beside it. But right now, I just have a piece of 2x4 in there. Pretty cool, right? Again, guys, I hope you enjoyed this content video. Make sure you check out the other videos in the overall project series. I hope I didn't monologue too much, but I really do enjoy talking to you here in the studio as we create amazing artwork. I'm trying to make these videos much more in-depth as far as just me on the camera, as well as the projects that you see here in the studio. Now, some of those projects will kind of like cascade into previous projects, but as I improve my overall video content creation as well as my audio, I want to make sure that I share those more updated, more intense, more professional grade content videos with you guys. That way you can really just enjoy the artistic and creation journey here on YouTube with me. As always, guys, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you can see all of the awesome projects that I have coming up. And if you want notifications, make sure you hit the notification bell so you can see when those videos are uploaded. Again, just remember that if you're subscribing to my channel, I am not in just one type of art. I am into all sorts of types of art. So if you want to see all sorts of different mediums and projects incorporated all together in some projects, but then other times you'll see one individual art medium, then I might be the channel for you. If you're only looking for one type of art, you might not find that here. But I do cascade into all sorts of different things. I will see you guys on the next awesome video. Peace.